we have another question here. I'd like you to have a go at this one yourselves, just to start off with a little bit, so you're going to have to pause it. But let me go through some of this just to get you going, just so you're all clear on what's happening. So we've got two dice being thrown, a red dice and a blue dice, and we've got the scores that we've got across each one, written the red dice across the top, the blue dice down the bottom. And the question is about what the most likely score is when we add the numbers on the two dice. So we're going to need to fill in when we add 1 and 1, we add 2 and 1. Yeah, we keep going like that. And this number down here would be a 4 and a 5. That would be a 9. Okay, so that's getting you going. So once you've filled in the grid, you need to answer the question to say, what's the most likely number you get when you add the scores on two dice? And then looking at the grid, what's the probability of you getting that score? Okay, so have a bit of a sketch of the grid, have a think about what that's going to give you, pause the video and come back once you've filled the grid in. Okay, let's just quickly whiz through the rest of the answers on here then. So we have, that should be a 5, 4 and a 1, 6, I'm just going to do this quite quickly, 7, 3, 4. If you notice, when you were filling yours in, should have come like diagonal lines like this. So these are all 5s as well. We've got a diagonal line of 5s there. Lines of 6s coming in. Lines of 7. And if you're picking up this pattern here, that will help you, I think, to see which is going to be the most common score. You know, once I've got to this point, I probably don't need to fill in any further to see what the most common score is going to be. You probably see it already. So we're getting our diagonal lines coming in like this, just as we're adding them together. You maybe did it that way. Maybe you just did it a row at a time to have a look and see what they came out to give you. But either way, you'll have got the grid like I have there. So we can see the smallest score we could get is a 2. That's the smallest score we could get. And the biggest score we could get is a 12. Anything from 2 to 12 we can get. But all the scores aren't equally likely. There's only one way of getting a 2. We've ticked it. There's only one way of getting a 12. We've ticked it. But the most common score that we could get is off that diagonal there. All right, I can see that actually there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 7s. So 7 is my most common score. All the other scores, we get less than 6 times, less than 6 ways of being able to do it. How many ways, how many combinations are there altogether? Well, if I do 6 times 6, each one of these red squares that I've filled a score in, there are 36 outcomes altogether. So my probability answer is going to be something out of 36. But how many out of 36? Well, there were 6 of the 7s. So there will be 6 out of 36. And you may look at that and think, oh, that's going to simplify. I can divide 6 into both 6 and 36. It will go once, and to the bottom, it will go in 6 times. 1 out of 6, which hopefully makes a bit of sense as well, because if I look at it another way, I'll just change my colour on my pen. If I look at it another way, I should be able to see that on every row, right, this first row, I've got 1 7. On the second row, I've got 1 7. On the third row, I've got 1 7. Fourth row, fifth row, sixth row. On every row, I've got 1 7. And how many scores are there on each row? There are 6. So 1 out of every 6 numbers on there is a 7. 1 in 6, 1/6 is the probability.